G'day there, I'm SnakeOfBacon, and this is Yakuza Like a Dragon. Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon. Like a Dragon 7 Yakuza. No, this isn't a Resident Evil 7 Biohazard 7 Resident Evil situation. In Japan this is actually Like a Dragon 7 Whereabouts of Light and Darkness, or Ryuga Gotoku 7 Hikari to Yami no Yukue. So, what is it? What is Yakuza 7? The shortest description I can give you for the entire Yakuza franchise is Whisky Opera. I give it this moniker not because it has the conventions of opera, orchestral music and arias and recitative singing, but because it tells big, dramatic stories with its own set of clearly defined conventions that could make Whisky Opera a genre alongside labels like space opera, horse opera, and soap opera. Space operas just about always feature interstellar fleets, daring rescues, aliens, and some sort of space emperor, and it's just as important as the libretto to an opera. Some Western films and television series, particularly those with lower budgets or less creativity, are nicknamed horse operas, because just as sure as there's singing in an opera, you will see scenes of men with hats on, riding horses and shooting each other, and eventually coming into a town to hitch the horses and walk into a saloon and play poker and or shoot each other and or talk about gold or stolen horses. Thirdly, soap operas are the continuing stories of the dramas that go on in people's lives, sometimes mundane, sometimes insane. The soap in the name comes from the early radio days of these daytime serial dramas. Their contents and time slot did and still do appeal to housewives, and Procter & Gamble has known this since the early 1930s, and that's why they sponsored so many radio serials in order to sell laundry soap to the people who buy it. Yakuza games are role-playing games, set in an almost real world where violent street fighting action is mixed with comedic sub-stories, virtual tourism, and city life simulation. In the stories, we see life through the eyes of men on the shady side of the law, some of whom are extremely muscular and emanate colourful fire, and their continuing struggles with duty, honour, love, and finding the meaning of life, concurrently with larger inter-organisational struggles that suck them in for money and power, like a solar system of might and greed. After a day of fighting through the army of thugs that invariably gathers under the gravity of corruption, our heroes often recuperate in small, quiet bars with a whiskey on the rocks. And that's how these games go, and I love them. A few years ago, to follow this series, you'd be playing games across 3 PlayStation consoles. Thankfully, since then, there's been a series of remakes, remasters, and re-releases to complete the cycle, so you can play the whole saga of Kiryu Kazuma on one platform of choice, whether that's PS4, PC, or Xbox One. Now that the series is so much easier to access, you have a lot less excuses for not having played these games yet, besides there being so very many of them and confusion over where you could start. You can start with the PS2 originals or the remakes. This is Yakuza Kiwami 2, but you can't play the remake of 2 until you've played the remake of 1, Yakuza Kiwami. Or you could play the prequel to all of that, Yakuza 0, or you could just start with Yakuza 7. Come on, let me tell you why this is a very good game, and you don't need to have played any other Yakuza game to enjoy it. But once you have played it, you'll probably want to play the others, even though they're extremely different to this. They're all good, and this one's very good. And it took me too long to get around to playing it. But I did, and that's why I'm making this big review. Chapter 2. Meet Ichiban. You may have met Ichiban already, as the PS4 worldwide release of Yakuza 7 was almost 4 years ago now, and to make sure we were all familiar beforehand, this character was announced to the world in August 2017 in the same big announcement livestream as Kiwami 2 and Fist of the North Yakuza. But anyway, let's introduce you to Kasuga Ichiban. Born in a soapland on the 1st of January 1977, hence the name, Number 1, Ichiban. He was raised in the red light district without knowing his parents, drifted into the Tojo clan, and he's played so much Dragon Quest to escape his hard childhood that he models himself on the hero and imagines street fights as turn-based combat that you see here. Now, given that every other game from RGG Studios had real-time brawler combat, or shooting, or rolling into bananas, the shift to turn-based may at first seem like a boring downgrade, especially in this kiddie pool version at the start of the game. But over time, you'll be introduced to more characters, more attacks, more strategy. It gets better, in short. I'll speak more on combat later. For now, what's important is the premise, the context that Ichiban is in. I've just bought a tuna and egg sandwich on the last day of the millennium. It was December 31st, 2000. Now it's January 1st, 2001. Ichi gets fireworks for his 24th birthday and has his last sleep in a very long while as a free man. On the first day of the century, he's asked to turn himself in for a murder he didn't commit, for the family. And he does. He's sentenced to 15 years in prison. Ichiban is willing to do this because he feels he owes his life to Patriarch Masumi Arakawa. And in his second year in prison, some thugs who are taunting him and smearing the boss's good name get their teeth knocked out by Ichiban, but Ichi's the one who really suffers. That is the bite of bread of a man who's just found out he's serving 3 more years for one stupid mistake. It's a really impactful scene. The prison guard's lines, the cinematography, the music, the bread. All of these aspects are of the highest quality. Make no mistake, Yakuza 7 is a serious dramatic work of art, as is every game in the series. When the cutscenes are at their best, they're emotionally, aesthetically, and cinematographically brilliant on so many levels. Look at the physics of this bread roll. I've never seen bread being spongy and ripping like real bread in a video game. It's a fantastic achievement. Of course, bread graphics are not the most important thing in this scene, but they are somewhat important. The bread looking real and delicious helps us to imagine that Ichiban would really be enjoying it were this not one of the worst moments of his life so far. This is the story of a man who started his life at the very bottom of the ladder and has hardly moved up. He would have died as a street urchin if he hadn't been saved by a local Yakuza boss at 15. So, naturally, he's extremely grateful to the man who rescued him and then gave him a job, clothes, food, somewhere to stay, a sort of family. How can you repay that? Taking the fall for this murder, in Ichiban's mind, that's his chance to really do something helpful and useful and pay back some of that life debt and move up in the world. Maybe by paying penance he can gain acceptance and be someone. Not just the errand boy, but someone loved and respected. But a 3-year extension for knocking a few guys' teeth out? No one needed that. This situation is worse for everyone. He's let himself down and he's let his boss down. He can't be useful if he can't be a model prisoner. He must endure. He has more time left to serve than the day he started, and he won't be out until he's 42. But at least the bread's good.
違う。お前の刑期が伸びたことだ。
Chapter 3. With a little help from my friends. I'm not here to summarise the game. This is a review and not a recount of the story. There are great little chapter summaries when you load. Of course, they were intended for 8th gen consoles with hard drives. They are impossible to read on PS5. There's no time. It's 2019. Ichiban's finally been released. He tried to get his old haircut back. It didn't quite work. Now you've been caught up to speed. And I still have the tuna and egg sandwich from the 20th century. You want to know what happened to the last surviving sandwich of the prior millennium? Adachi ate it. And he's fine, because he's a great character. Koichi Adachi is an almost retired cop and driving instructor, who takes an interest in Ichiban's case and adds some interest to combat. Good, now we've got 2 people, hard baseballs we can throw. As you move out of the tutorial, the battle systems get more interesting. Oh, and Adachi is played by Akio Otsuka, and sort of looks like him too. Speaking of great actors, time stop. Adam Driver carried Megalopolis. But what I mean is, Kazuhiro Nakaya plays Kasuga Ichiban, and he's been with the series since the start. He was the original voice of Akira Nishikiyama. Not to be confused with Akira. 10 years in the joint made you a pussy. Nishiki. That's played by Michael Rosenbaum. who was also playing Lex Luthor on Smallville at that time. Anyway, my point is, Nakaya has been with the series so long and was so good in Yakuza 0 and Kiwami as well, it's great to see him get a starring role. Ichiban goes to visit his boss and get the Peking duck he was promised 18 years ago. I promise I'm not recounting the story. This is in the trailer, it's setting up the premise of the game. Masumi Arakawa is played by Kiichi Nakai, and he does so well. I just love this character and I wish he had more scenes. But for the most part, he's mysterious. And I think it's intentional that we are left wanting more scenes. Now the player can sympathise with Ichiban. Ichiban wants to see his boss, the player wants to see more of this great character. Did I mention there's an English dub?
Please just tell me. Why'd you do it?
Talk to the hand. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the English dub. The whole cast does a great job in all the scenes I've seen in English. Kaiji Tang makes a great English-speaking Ichiban. However, I've played 9 entries in the series before it in Japanese, and the very first game with its funny English dub, so I'm not switching over now. But I am going to show you a comparison.
Acting Captain, do we have a problem
Note
here?
that the 2 dubs get different subtitles, which is a huge effort.
No need for you
And
to
the lip
worry.
sync is perfect in both languages. And Arakawa is played by George
In
Takei.
fact, it's going as planned.
The legend, Mr. Sulu himself is the boss, and he's going to shoot you.
I'm sorry, Ichi. You have to die.
Well, that was a short game. Nah, I'm kidding. Ichiban didn't die. He was dumped half dead in Yokohama. He now has to climb the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs from the very bottom. The first priority is, of course, not dying of a massive wound. So, thankfully, there was someone around to help with that. And here is Ichiban talking with his rescuer about bread. I think the game might be about bread. I also want to bring attention to how impressive the regular dialogue scenes are in Yakuza games now. There used to be a sharp divide between text box bits and fancy cinematics. Now it's all very high quality and cinematic. And think how good that bread must taste, with the freedom and the not dying and the whole fish with bones in it. Nothing like a fish hot dog. This is Nanba, played by Ken Yasuda in Japanese and Greg Chan in English. In RPG terms, because he's a trained nurse, he has healing skills, and because he's homeless, he's skilled in fire breathing and pigeonmancy. At this point in the game, unusually for this series, we're nobodies and we're quite weak. We don't stand a chance in Koreatown. You shouldn't go there until you're level 20. We're also homeless and dirt poor, and losing half our money in a fight does not help. Wait, is that the unwritten rule? When we beat enemies, do we also take exactly half of their pocket money? I wonder. Anyway, to survive, we'll have to enter the cutthroat world of can collecting. This minigame is called Can Quest, wherein you ride a tricycle with a trailer around the streets, picking up aluminium cans from beers and soft drinks. And, well, it's Can Quest, it's conquest, it's gladiatorial combat. You're in a fight against other homeless people doing the same thing. So you must rule the streets, collect as many cans as possible, ram them with your energy drink powers, and avoid the garbage truck. If you run out of time, you will lose all of your cans. So when you feel you have enough, or you can no longer delay it any longer, head to the goal area to reap your rewards. From this hard day's work, Ichiban's collected enough cans to barely get him a passing grade of C, not a better B, A, or S. It is graded very much like Crazy Taxi.
A Class C license. That's not a lot of cans. Don't quit your day job. Oh, I forgot you didn't have one. Sorry about that.
And you exchange these cans for eco points with another homeless man who presumably exchanges them for cash himself, but not much cash. In Japan, cans just aren't worth very much. Coincidentally, 67 average-sized aluminium drink cans is just about exactly 1 kilo, and one Japanese website I found tells me they pay 93 yen per kilo of cans. And that's not a lot, but it's a lot more than what you get for PET bottles in Japan. 7-Eleven has been rolling out a reverse vending machine system from 2012 onwards. It reached Yokohama in January 2020. And under the system, 5 PET bottles earns you 1 Nanako point. 1 Nanako point saves you 1 yen off your groceries. So effectively you make 0.2 yen per bottle. It's a nice gesture to be paid for doing your part in keeping the country clean, but I wouldn't be surprised if most PET bottles ended up in other normal recycling bins that don't require a membership to use, even if they don't pay you anything, because that's not adequate remuneration for my time spent putting bottles in a box. Contrastingly, where I live in New South Wales, every can is worth 10 cents at a return and earn station, and every PET bottle is also 10 cents each. That's 6 times the value of the cans, 50 times the value of the bottles, much more than you would make in Japan. Of course, practically overnight, the price of every one of those cans and bottles increased by 10 cents, and since the system's introduction, they've gone up so very much more. But in this state, you are paid well for your cans and bottles, and poppers as well. I forgot poppers. The rest of the world doesn't call them poppers. Cartons, juice boxes in New York. Anyway, they're also 10 cents each. South Australia did this first. They've had a container deposit scheme since 1977. But now, after much waiting, every state and territory of Australia has an equivalent system. In the Northern Territory, in Victoria and the ACT, it's also just called Container Deposit Scheme. In Queensland and WA, it's Containers for Change, which sounds really heroic. And in Tasmania, well, they haven't actually got it yet, but Tas Recycle is coming 2025, hopefully. My point is, because it's government run and not run by 7-Eleven, you're not trading these things for points that you have to use at one store. You can change your cans and bottles and cartons directly for cash. Which means if you're not the one buying and drinking all of these drinks, if you're just finding containers on the ground and scavenging, you're making money. If you can process more than 4 drink containers a minute, you're outpacing minimum wage. In short, if Ichiban woke up not in Yokohama but in Chatswood, he'd find that the CanQuest game was much more serious. Okay, we got a bit sidetracked about cans. Where were we? Yokohama. Ichiban can take photos with his phone. It's a returning feature from Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2, but it's the first time you can do this with a party of people behind you. That's a fun little feature. Anyway, pretty soon, Ichiban finds a bat in the ground and decides that it's basically Excalibur, and he's the only one who can wield it because he's a hero. Ichiban will now take this bat everywhere, concealed somehow. You know, most places wouldn't let you in with a spiked baseball bat, but this is an RPG, it's fine. Now, while we're here in combat with our new bat, I should show you, blocking is done in real time. Not everything's so static. Even combat can be quite dynamic when you do area attacks like this that depend on the enemy's position, and oh my, is it satisfying to knock down an entire group with one swing. Feels good. This almost makes up for the lack of environmental attacks. You can still hit people with the bicycle, but only if there happens to be one nearby, then you'll automatically use it when you try and do a normal attack. I was hoping for better street weapon integration, and possibly the ability to capture and summon a Subaru Sambar, but, you know, we can't have everything. At least I can stop it in the street and walk around it, but you've got to be careful doing that. You may be used to the small pedestrianised map of Kamurocho. Isesaki Ejincho is big and has roads, and cars that will hit you. As we all know, being hit by a car causes 100 damage and is very bad for your organs. There are more friends to meet. Before too long, you'll have your 4th party slot filled out by Sayako Mukoda, portrayed by Sumire Uesaka. Now, why would this young hostess bar manager be joining street fights alongside 3 scruffy, underemployed, middle-aged men? Because she's embroiled in the same plot. I'm not going to spoil the plot. It's a mystery that only this 4-piece band can solve. With additional pieces, there are yet more party members to discover. And so many odd little things to find around Isesaki Ejincho. Like this. What is it? A lobster? No. It's a crayfish. Or a crawfish in American English. I will call it a crayfish. Anyway, because Ichiban's a hero, he wouldn't just leave a crayfish on the street. That's not where it belongs. He's such a good guy, he's going to put it back in the river. With a lot of force. Nancy the crayfish is important. That's why Nancy's on the cover. crucial part, this. In any other game, it might be just a crayfish we met in a funny scene. But Yakuza Like a Dragon is not any other game. Nancy is an ally that we can call on to help with boss fights, as part of the Poundmate system, which combines all the wonderful cinematic brutality of heat actions and specialised attacks with weapons with all the outlandish cameos that these games often have from wild characters around the city. Nancy's attack is truly amazing. Of course, there's other great cameos like Gary Buster Holmes, but nothing quite like calling on your crayfish friend to attack, which does poison damage for some unknown reason. Crayfish are not venomous, so I don't know if it's supposed to be an allergic reaction or what, but good stuff. I can't explain why Sayako's beating up Mabuchi with an icy pole yet. Maybe later. For now, I want to say that the boss battles in this game are seriously good, exciting, and they've got great music. The whole game has great music. This piece, Mabuchi's boss theme, War Maker, is a banger. Yeah, the music's good. Where were we? We're Kasuga Ichiban.
Hey.
We were homeless. We're still somewhat homeless. What is that guy doing? Real-time cutscenes, folks. I mean, sometimes people in the crowd can... Where'd he go? Okay, so we wanted to be a hero. Well, there's good business being a hero. There isn't usually, but now someone's made an app for that. Someone who wears a helmet with a business suit. Basically, by signing up to Part-Time Hero, anyone who has a particular problem, who needs something, can put up a request. And this is your town bounty board. You can bring people food or beat up someone for them. And it also unlocks the completion list, which means, well, in my case, I had pop-ups coming up for the next several minutes telling me all the many things I'd unlocked. Every one of these tiny milestones you'll fulfill gives you some experience in categories that level up your personality. This game's about self-improvement. Ichiban strives to grow from being a lifeless, repulsive, callous, dumbass, tasteless pushover to a man of volcanic passion, an irresistible, mastermind, benevolent, style king badass. A renaissance man, essentially. Studying helps. There's a vocational school minigame where you actually do trivia to improve Ichiban's stats, if you can pass the test. And when you do, there's a wonderful celebration. I mean, it is worth celebrating. Here's this man, 42 years old, restarting his life. He started from nothing. Now he's got some friends, he's got some money. Well, you'll need to find money first to pay for this minigame. It's quite expensive. You'll need to get a job. I haven't even mentioned the job system. This RPG has a job system in which you literally employ yourself in other jobs that would have relevant equipment, be a foreman, get a hammer, be a break dancer, get breakdancing attacks. You know, it makes perfect sense. Change jobs often, be a chef. Variety and paprika are spices of life. Unfortunately, there's no overlap between male and female jobs, so Ichiban can't be a night queen, as entertaining as that would be, and Sayako can't use a katana nor breakdance. These three friends, and three more you'll meet later, are what makes the game so different to previous Yakuza games. No longer a story about one lone man, Happy birthday! But instead a story about one heroic leader and his friends, and their adventures in life and love and battle and employment and all of that. Yeah, and a whiskey bar. See how the man becomes the fish who turns into a dragon, who becomes a man who used 500,000 yen to pimp slap a tiger. Where did he get all that money? It was not from recycling cans, I tell you that. Chapter 4. Business. After fighting a little bit of crime and being recognised by the city, our gang of 4 comes across another character. If this were a movie poster, it would have billed all the main cast and finished with the words, "and Eri Kamataki" as herself. Except not exactly. Well, a fictionalised version. The character, Eri Kamataki, is played by the actress Eri Kamataki in Japanese. And in English, by Eden Regal, who's also Coco Bandicoot in the latest Crash Bandicoot game, which is very interesting. Anyway, Eri and this chicken are going to be very helpful to us. You may have no idea where this is going. I don't either. Eri Kamataki has recently inherited control of her late grandfather's struggling senbei business, Ichiban Confections. And Ichiban Kasuga, because he shares a name with the business, thinks it's his destiny to help it out. He also happens to have a friend who's an angel investor. So, Ichiban, the person, is given the role of company president, so he can have the difficult task of firing the hangers-on who are eating all the company's money. That's enough to get Ichiban Senbei slightly in the black, but that's hardly anything. There's a lot more to do. We need to manage employees, choose the ones that have the right stats for the right buildings. You have to assign everyone to a role based on whether they're good at developing products, providing service, or enhancing the notability of your business. You then use the profits that you make to buy more businesses and employ more people and level up the people's skills, and so on and so forth, to make more and more and more money and increase your share price so that you can make more money and climb up the ranks and fulfill your goals to your shareholders and pay off any debts you have. I only ever took one loan in this game. I would only recommend taking one quite small loan at the beginning and never again. Do invest in any odd investment opportunities you find. They're always good. Okay, they're really not always good, but 5 million return on investment, 1 million capital, probably worth it. It doesn't tell you the chance, but it's pretty high that it's going to pay off. There are other things you can spend money on too, like the all-important advertising. Before we open for business with the increased traffic of our advertising plan, I will maximise the profits our business makes by investing in it. By investing in the product development, service and notability categories, you can improve the basic stats of each of those 3 categories, so that if your employees are lacking in skills, the investments make up for it. Then by increasing the sales volume, you move up the pegs to the very edge of what you can sell based on the combination of your property stats and your employee stats. Then you open for business with maximised potential profits.
私が社長です。美味しさ一番、一番せんべい。笑顔が一番、一番成果です。
Eat at Ichiban's! Ichiban Senbei! This is going to be a very good business day. The advertising has magnified the effect of all the work we've put in. The employees are motivated because I've given them so much self-care and promotions, and everything's going good. So as long as you keep your employees happy, make sure that your product is advertised every now and then, you're going to make money in this game. Of course, all the money we're making here is the company's money, going towards managing the company. Ichiban doesn't get all of these millions of yen, but you do get a lot of money from the next phase. Separate to the day-to-day running of the company, but very relevant to climbing this pyramid. Hey, wait a minute. We're really climbing Maslow's pyramid too now. As company president, I've definitely got some personal security and employment. Right, where was I? Ah yes, to climb this pyramid, we need to appease our shareholders. And you do this through the other stats of these employees, which are their red, blue and green colours, which really just work as a fire, water, grass weakness system to answer questions. And you have the apology system just to save your life for a few seconds. He's asking a red question, it's weak to blue answers. And he's a blue character, so he's weak to green. Very, very simple. It looks complicated, it's really not. The shareholders are happy, we crack the sake barrel, sorry I pressed skip, and in this phase, Ichiban gets paid. And you get paid more every time. If you see an investment that pays 10 to 1, well, in real life you'd be skeptical. But in this game, take that investment. It will save your business. Also, Eri says she likes dark beer, so you know what to get her for Christmas. 2 years old at least, Sapporo Black if you're nice. Once the business is going well, Eri will actually join your party.
はい、よろしくお願いします。
And that's special. We don't just let anyone in. I've had offers from people, drunk homeless accountants on the street who want to finagle my income taxes down. It's a nice offer, but he shouldn't have asked me when I was homeless too and making no income. Eri can look after herself. She's proven her skills in the business world. She just needed a little bit of help out of a financial hole. But after being shot with a gun, she can heal herself with a massage wand. Fully heal herself. It's a very effective massage wand. And this is a very powerful riding crop. But you can get better weapons for every class. Where will we get better weapons?
よっしゃ、行くぜ。
From a workshop.
あとちょっと。よいしょ。よっしゃ、できた。やっば。出来良すぎじゃん。
Sumire, who runs Romance Workshop, can upgrade Ichiban's bat and everyone else's weapons and craft whole new ones as well. But it will eventually cost you a lot of money. Where will you get a lot of money? Business.
ようこそ一番ホールディングスへ。
Yes, you can grow a senbei shop into a holdings company. You can buy Yokohama's Cosmo clock and get the chicken to manage it. Or Hanzawa, he's got good stats. Omelette has a better trick. You can call on Omelette to heal your party with the Egg of Wonders. These animations. So anyway, in a daring baseball maneuver, Ichiban dives and catches the wonderful HP egg. And what will he do with it? Swallow it like an egg-eating snake? No! Crack it into a bowl of rice. This is known as Tamago Kake Gohan. And it is amazingly delicious. I tried it myself. You just get a bowl of hot rice, crack a raw egg into it, stir it all around, add a splash of soy sauce. It is very, very tasty. Now you know everything you need to know about running a senbei business. What's really odd about this, though, is that it is technically optional. You can go through the whole game without ever touching this, and in fact without ever recruiting Eri to your party. But if you don't do that, you'll be seriously struggling to make money, and you'll miss out on Eri and Ichi's Like a Butterfly duet. And clearly you don't want to miss that. This is a very crunchy senbei. Ichiban senbei. Is it better than the other senbei? Oh, we're going for a senbei review. We have no sponsors. Boss. Senbei is so good. Doesn't it make you want a senbei? Do you want a senbei? This one might be a little bit bigger. It's got a nice big package. And I especially like the message. Digging into boring pie, getting out of boring time. Now, this want senbei is bigger. I mean, it's not I want a big dinner plate size senbei, but I just haven't been able to find that at any of my local stores. So, bigger senbei. I can feel the health points. It's tangible. It's hard to say which I prefer. They're both nice, sweet, salty, savoury, crunchy rice crackers. It's like the ideal snack. It has everything you would want, except, I don't know, meatiness. But then there's beef jerky for that, but jerky is expensive and it gets caught in your teeth and it goes into your little cavities. And senbei, I don't know, miss my coarse cavities too, but Chapter 5. It's big. It's a big game. It's a big world. Isazaki Jinsho is a large place and it's easy to get lost. And if not lost directionally, just immersed. Lost in the game. Lost in this world. In the beauty of the water and the lights. The nightlife. Immersing yourself in it. That's one of the greatest parts of these Yakuza games. Virtual tourism. Have an imaginary holiday. Immerse yourself in digital Japan. And it can prepare you for if you ever do decide to go. You want 3 buckets of that chicken? Chiki no mitsu kudasai. And when they say fukuro, you say daijobu, because you don't need a bag. You can't buy hot chicken in this one, but you can buy refreshing drinks. I think some better descriptions could be used. A whole bottle of whiskey is not a refreshing drink. Even in mundane parts of the city, there are people who have interesting things to say, adding flavour to the game. This woman has wondered her whole life what a men's bathroom looks like, and too many men take that for granted. This is a bathroom typical of the male experience. It has some urinals and stalls, and sinks, hopefully with soap. On the other side is the women's bathroom, which is, of course, protected by an invisible wall or social construct. Men may only enter during renovation. You can order food in restaurants. 1 glass of milk serves 3 people. Or maybe everyone else ordered their own milk? Either way, you can't order multiples of the same item. But you can have a huge feast or as small as you want, and all health points are shared equally. It's nice to have a meal with your friends and have a sit down in some chairs. You can't normally interact with chairs, other than through utter destruction. The Dragon Engine it's just like that sometimes. If you run through an office, inevitably, telephones, tables, chairs, all will perish. A habit you pick up in the early stages of the game while you're still homeless is scrounging around under vending machines for coins. Don't stop just because you have money. You might find a gold plate worth 100,000 yen. Lucky. There's a continuous sense of mild treasure hunting. Wherever you go, you might find something cool. I was really excited for a moment. I thought we'd have underground shopping areas in the Yakuza game for the first time, but they're still closed. And yet, they still put items down here every now and then. As if the developers are apologising for leading you to a dead end. I had to put this bit somewhere because I don't know where to put it. It's a bastard soda! It's a pun on a bastard sword. A 2-handed sword that's not quite large enough to be exclusively 2-handed, so it can be swung with 1 or 2 hands. But it has a pretty long handle, this soda icy pole. It's not quite a Calippo's Zweihander. And it's made out of glass and plastic, so don't eat it. There are so many other things you could be eating. And now I have to show off the party conversation system.
バカ食えば恐竜みたいに元気になるって意味だろ。
違うわよ。恐竜も追いかけ回すほどの美味しさって意味よ。
The meaning of the dinosaur is ambiguous,
いただきます。
but clearly it indicates good burgers.
いただきます。
This game also has table talk.
やっぱりシンプルなハンバーガーが一番うめえな。
そりゃまあ王道だからな。
Talking about food is what friends do, and it really helps Ichi and the party bond, and helps the player, obviously, to bond with the characters. Over food. Yes, I have been avoiding showing off the 2 later characters because you meet them much further into the story. Now here's a really elaborate looking restaurant where it seems there's going to be some sort of Iron Chef battle, and they've got delicious looking bao, and you can't go in because this is not actually a location in the game, it's just an added detail. There are so many restaurants that aren't actually real restaurants in this game. Is this even real bamboo? Yep, it's a physics object. And if you run at it hard enough, it will explode eventually. That is not important. What is important is being a hero, helping people in sub-stories. Like here, I promised a man I'd help him find customers who'd buy his kimchi. Take the free promotional kimchi. Look at his facial expression, he's like a stunned Kermit. Oh, free food, that's, very generous of you, thank you. Or you might meet a surveyor with a click counter. Hey, I use click counters all the time. As a hobby though, it's this guy's job. But unfortunately he has a repetitive strain injury or carpal tunnel or something. So then you can do his click counting. For just this very short part of the game, it would help if you had a click counter on hand. Just about everyone you help in sub-stories will either assist you in battle or in business, and all the other minor quests will give you helpful crafting materials and money. There are dungeons underground where you fight more rare enemies and get money. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's a professor who's classified all these enemies as Sujimon, or like delinquent human Pokemon. It's a very entertaining system. It makes perfect sense for a turn-based RPG. Why have everyone just be a human thug when they can be categorized as a different type of monster? This guy here is the final evolution of human wearing a sandwich board. Gives him extremely high defense. That's why we need these very flashy attacks. Turns out, he's strong against fire anyway, but weak against electric attacks. Isazaki Ijincho is about triple the size of the previous major setting of Kamurocho, but it's not daunting because it's revealed to you slowly. You start in the south end, which is about the size of a typical Yakuza game map, and then it just keeps growing from there as more areas are made accessible to you. Sometimes there are actual physical barriers stopping you from going in, but usually it's more soft barriers, like enemies far over your level. I don't know how often that escape button works, because that was the only time I ever tried to use it. In early chapters of the game, you'll sometimes just have to walk on the other side of the street and not start the fight. One day soon, though, you'll be strong enough to beat everyone in Yokohama, and then you've got to get even stronger to fight the people in Osaka, and that's a whole other deal. Oh boy, this game is big. Before we get talking about anything to do with Osaka, how about we relax? Chapter 6, Leisure. The batting cage, a Yakuza series staple and one of many places for Ichiban to unwind when he's not busy being a hero or a businessman. If baseball's not your cup of tea, well, that shouldn't matter, because hitting a baseball is very different to watching the sport of baseball. But even if you don't like hitting a baseball, that's fine, because this is one of about 22 minigames. Moving on to minigame 2, it's golf. No, definitely not this golf. It's a driving range minigame with 2 different modes, both involving quite high accuracy. This one, you try and get close to the pin, or sink it if you're a legend, and the other one's a giant golf bingo, which is similar to the older batting range game of baseball bingo. Base bingo. If you think hitting a certain point on a hill is hard, imagine trying to hit a moving target. Keep imagining, because I didn't record golf bingo. You've seen already the minigame of Can Quest. It gets serious. Even after you've lifted Ichiban out of poverty, it's still fun to come back here and set high scores. 758 cans!
Alright, it's time to check out how you did today. Come on now, let's take a look. Class S license! Man, you've got enough cans to probably buy a whole sushi set.
Moving on to minigame 3.
じゃあ今度大会で当たるかもね。でもその時は潰しちゃうから。
What an odd bunch of characters. What are we going to do? Kart racing! Welcome to Dragon Kart. It's kart racing around the streets of Yokohama. Probably inspired by the city kart racing, where, tourists dress up as Mario Kart characters. It's been running in Tokyo since about 2015. This is Sega's take on that. We've got to make it extreme so you can fire rocket-propelled grenades. That's the races in front of you. We've got RPGs in this RPG. I find the animation hilarious. And of course you pick up rings to go faster because Sega. Now, the handling model is atrocious, but in an endearing way. There is no sense of actual kart physics or even anything resembling a wheeled vehicle. It does not feel like Mario Kart, Crash Team Racing, Muppet Race Mania, or any other kart racing game, but it does feel like sliding a really heavy piece of furniture on carpet. like a double desk or a couch with a folding bed. I'm not sure which of those it's more like, but it's very heavy. Of course there's a light cart, but the heavy cart has the high top speed, so naturally that's the one to pick. You don't ever have to brake for corners, you just approach them and pivot around, which made me very confused, and I went on the internet and saw people complaining in forums that they can't beat Dragon Kart because they can't master the drifting system. I haven't drifted once. I almost never touch the brakes or let go of the accelerator. It feels terribly inefficient going around corners slowly, but you just don't need to drift. It's not a good racing game at all, but it's an entertaining little bonus, like Motor Combat was in Mortal Kombat Armageddon.
You know, you got it free. It was just thrown in as an extra. It's just the main bulk of the game.
A great bonus here is that you can buy soundtrack CDs with your Dragon Kart points. So you can listen to Daytona USA in the Survive bar. Daytona, let's go away. Daytona, woo! As usual, there's a darts minigame. Now you can play against your party members to bond with them as you crush their scores. I really like that. Usually in Yakuza games you just play against the people that work at the bar, but playing against your party members is fun. Unfortunately, there aren't many minigames you can play with your party. I really want to play pool with a Dachi, but there are no pool tables in Yakuza 7, unfortunately. Maybe in the 8th one, I haven't checked yet. I really need to play that game. But now, here's darts. Bring it on, Zhao. Let's see if you can beat me at darts. I don't think you can. Triple 20. Triple 20. Triple 20. I think darts has been too easy since it switched to timing controls in Yakuza 6. The older darts minigame where you had to use both sticks, that was quite tricky, like real darts. Anyway, let's see how Zhao does. I haven't even introduced you to Zhao, because I didn't want to, because it's a bit of a spoiler. Because now you've seen him, you'll know that he eventually joins your party, and you wouldn't expect that the first time you meet him in the game. Anyway, Zhao's pretty good at darts. But because I have blue darts, I can't lose. I wonder how much easier it would be with the gold ones. Not that I need them. Anyway, darts is too easy here. Thankfully, darts is a fair bit harder in Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name. There you go, perfect game. Maybe I should have played 501, that would have been a little bit harder. Then there's the vocational school minigame, which takes the form of trivia. Hey, don't look at my answers. Then there's the minigame of trying not to fall asleep at the cinema and be abducted by a sheep. From the cover, and this placement at the top, I really thought the sheep was the villain. Like we'd have some sort of deep government corruption, like masked terrorist thing. Actually, the sheep, that's a Ram from the cinema minigame. It only exists in Ichiban's brain. The Seagull Cinema is a beautiful old picture palace underground in Isazaki Ujincho that plays a variety of films. However, the chairs are very comfy, so Ichiban spends his time staving off the Rams that are trying to take him to the land of the sleeping. It's whack-a-mole, don't hit the rooster is good. You can bring your friends along to any movie, and if you get the right combinations, there's a bit of bonus dialogue. You can talk to your friends about the movies. I found this minigame very funny. And there's such a variety of things. You can take Eri to watch an Il Yujin movie. Remember Il Yujin from Yakuza 3? And Kiwami 2? I don't know. It's fun to see these references being carried through. Fun for long-time Yakuza fans. I took Han Jungi to the movies, and I know I haven't introduced him properly either, and if you've played Yakuza 6, you're probably very confused about why he's my ally. Anyway, I took him to see the 48 Samurai. It's like 7 Samurai, but even harder to remember all the main characters. There was an old one, an angry one, and one that got in trouble with the farmer's daughter. Alright, next up we've got a hostess bar. The leisurely activity of paying to talk to girls who... Hold on. Yuen dislikes the pineapples and the sweet and sour pork. That is the most relatable thing I've ever read in a video game. They're the worst. I know you might disagree, shush. Anyway, you just make a food and drink order, and Ichiban and the boys have a great old time while Sayako and Eri go off and do something else. I don't know if this really counts as a minigame. There's no conversation system like the other in-depth hostess games in other Yakuza games. This is just a place where you order food and drink and then time is skipped to when you leave the place drunk. Now here's a mini game. There are 4 patchy slot machines. This is Another God Hades, Zeus Dethroned, and it is extremely boring. There's Million God, Return of the Gods, which is gold, and wow, 36. This is also extremely boring. Patchy slot Souten no Ken Ponyo is based on Fist of the Blue Sky and has lots of video bits, which is probably why the patchy slot games take up so much space. This is an optional free DLC that takes up around 10 gigabytes. I'd say it's not worth installing that just to play this. This, despite all its video coolness, is still just about as boring as watching gold numbers on Million God. If I had to pick a slot machine, I'd go with the 4th one. Patchy slot Beast King, Oja no Hoko. If I ever start the patchy slot minigame again, it'll be this one. I only tried it once, but it's the only one I actually found entertaining. You are a lion. It's like the Lion King, except it's about eating zebras. And it's completely insane. We're going Niku Max! Maximum meat! Maximum meerkat, hippopotamus, spin the wheel, I don't even know what's going. It's the most overstimulating, completely insane machine ever built. We're gonna have a battle against an ostrich. And I'm so glad I get to do this in a video game, not real life, because otherwise I would be losing quite a lot of money. Another addictive, tedious, and only slightly less financially ruinous minigame is in Yakuza 7, and that is the Claw Machine, the UFO catcher. A long-time series favourite. Picking up little stuffed dogs is all nice and fun and relaxing and very easy. I won 3 dogs in a row, which I can scarcely believe. I mean, skill testers are usually hard, and Yakuza game skill testers are usually a little bit hard. Clearly, I was just on fire picking up these pillow dogs. Maybe they're an easy shape. Most other toys are much harder to grab. These cats are a bit difficult. The big birds are worse. And then there's the monkey ball characters, which are some of the most difficult. You'd think you have them, but no, it's not so simple. Still no. Not this time. No. No, this is even more annoying than doing this in golf. Eventually, with enough persistence, it will find its way to the exit. And not necessarily in the claw. No, a big part of winning in UFO catches is kicking things in, either intentionally or completely by accident. I'm aiming for the orange cat. But I receive a happy bonus. That might be the only way to get one of these robo managers. They are a terrible shape for picking up. It's long and narrow and they're unbalanced, and it feels like it's impossible to pick up a robo manager. The only way I was able to get one was by knocking it in with the side of the claw. Finally, I've got this. I don't know how long it took, and I don't know if there's something more difficult. I'm sure there's heaps of prizes I haven't actually picked up yet, but I needed this one for a part-time hero mission. I'd like to give a shout out to the physics engine for helping me with that one. There are many other things in the arcades besides the UFO catcher. Like the dinosaur sign out the front? Well, this little arcade has Virtua Fighter 2 and Virtua Fighter 2.1 with 2 different difficulties. Every different machine runs a slightly different version of the game, so you have to decide easy or normal, updated or not. Good stuff. It runs at its full 60 FPS, it's arcade perfect, and you can play with 2 players, although not from here in the arcade. You can't just drop in a second controller, you actually have to go back to the main menu. Well, that's convenient if you haven't launched the game yet. You say to your friend, hey, you want to play Virtua Fighter 2 with me? Just let me go get Yakuza 7, or Yakuza Kiwami 2, or Yakuza 5. They've all had Virtua Fighter 2 in it. And it's good that they keep on including these things. Yakuza games are preserving Sega's arcade history. I love to see it. And I love Jeffrey McWild's voice acting.
I win! Because I strong. I'm the Australian character and my voice actor can't do accents. So Cookie Monster instead. I win! Is this game a cookie?
Yeah. Want to eat Virtua Fighter? Oh, please, Cookie Monster, it's not a cookie. Virtua Fighter 2 was a solid fighting game, and it was a technical marvel in 1994. But the voice acting...
Even good guys blow it.
The voice acting is the best bit. Time for me to leave Virtua Fighter 2 alone. The review's still not over, we've got other things to do.
I'm just waiting for my sister.
There's also an outrun machine in here. I've never sat in a real one, but just seeing that makes me really want to. You wouldn't be able to stop me from hopping in and putting on Magical Sound Shower.
Get ready?
Let's go. Alright, so I forgot the buttons. Thankfully there is a button guide, and one of the buttons changes the display, so you can stretch it if you really like, or turn on scan lines. And then you're off. Nothing wrong with Outrun. It's still the same great 2D racing game it always was. With branching paths and very pretty sky. I don't have time to review Outrun now, but you know it's good. I'd like to see the very hard to find 3D sequel put in, Outrun 2. Ooh, that'd be nice to see in Yakuza 10. What do we got here? Ah yes, video game changer. That looks legit. And there's a fantasy zone. You haven't heard? Long ago, far away in space, there existed a fantasy zone where a courageous hero called Opa fought in a valiant cause to rescue the fantasy zone from its enemies. It's a true story. Opa was a little ship with wings and... Oh, I'm already dead. Alright, forget 758. My new best is 857 cans. Now, Fantasy Zone is just such a happy little game about shooting things. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no attempt to be anything other than a happy, fun video game. And it is quite challenging. I can't remember if I've ever beaten this boss. This, is that Woodle Tree? No, it can't be. Maybe I have beaten it once. I'm sure I've made my way to the weapons shop. And I think you have to beat the first boss to get the weapons shop, but I don't know. The game has a lot of features that I can't show you. This isn't a Fantasy Zone review. What else have we got here? Space Harrier! You know, the one where you run forwards and fly somehow. I don't know how the character flies in Space Harrier. It just does. Are those Moai? Oh, I'm dodging pillars. It's intense. Oh. Yeah, look. This would have been easier. Ready? Many more battle... Oh. The Moai are flying now and spinning. I have no idea what's going on. That wasn't very fair. But I'm apparently doing great. Yeah, look, Space Harrier will always be fun, even if it will never make sense. There's my score. S-O-Z. I didn't get time to put in a B. Where's the one-eyed mammoth in this game? Rounding out the 80s Sega classics is Super Hang-On, the motorbike game. It's like Outrun, but with motorbikes, and it's harder. Or, is it harder? It also doesn't have branching paths, which is different. And the main gimmick of this arcade machine is that you sit on a motorbike and tilt your body to steer, which is a lot harder than using a stick. That's also apparently the excuse for why there aren't more good motorcycle video games. At least that's Polyphony Digital's excuse. Oh, we can't put motorbikes in Gran Turismo 7 because it's too expensive to make a motorbike steering wheel. Just use the controller! All the best motorcycle console video games have just used controllers. It's not... Anyway, more relevantly, Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown is also in here. That's 2 Virtua Fighters in one Yakuza game. Are you still hanging in there? Thank you so much for watching this far. We're 3/4 of the way through, don't fall asleep. The value of that. I own this for PS3 as its own whole game, and now it's a mini game in Yakuza 7? It was also in Yakuza 6, but Yakuza 6 didn't have Virtua Fighter 2, and Yakuza 7 has Virtua Fighter 2 and Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown. So, that's a lot of Virtua Fighter. You get the whole game. Once again, you can play it with 2 players from the main menu. And once again, wonderfully cheesy Virtua Fighter voice acting.
Mission
Mission accomplished.
And a deep and deceptively complicated fighting system, despite it only having 3 buttons, with 19 characters to pick from.
On the battlefield, you'd be dead.
Are you gonna block everything, Jean Cujo?
Wow, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Not quite as ridiculous as Dural, though. The big metallic woman returns from every other Virtua Fighter to be the final boss, and once again, she's just a real pain in the neck to fight. And you only get 1 try, so if you lose, oh well, no glory for you. And you will lose, because Dural is nasty. I'm always amused that she's called Dural, because I don't immediately think of Duraluminium when I hear Dural. I think of the suburb Dural, and specifically the huge 2-lane 4-exit roundabout in Dural near the KFC. From 3 directions, cars are doing 60 kilometers an hour, and from the other direction, they're going very, very slowly off the smaller roundabout. And when a high proportion of drivers don't use common sense, or their indicators, or their damned eyes, it makes driving in Dural dreadful. There's a rooftop in this game that has a football on it. Now, there were footballs in Yakuza 6 as well. That was the debut game of the Dragon Engine. It was the first Yakuza game to have physics objects around the place, and I amazed myself when I was able to tap the football and watch it bounce downstairs somewhat realistically. Unfortunately, I've lost all my Yakuza 6 clips. But in this game, I have a problem with the footballs. It is very hard to kick them. I was able to stand on it, but my feet just glide around the football. And I know you're supposed to kick it, because Ichiban acknowledges it in conversation. Now, very rarely, I can kick the ball with the outside of my foot. But look, when I try to move it again, the feet just go straight through or over. Ichiban just can't kick a football. Or, well, he can, but it's extremely difficult to do. I can't work out how to actually influence the football to being kicked. I have no chance of getting it in the goal or knocking down these beers. But football is in fact not a minigame. This one doesn't count. Karaoke is a minigame, and it's a fun one. It's just a simple rhythm game, but you get to see our characters singing and having fun. And they're all good. There's a variety of tracks, new and old. There's this metal song, which I think is about meat. We've got classics like Machine Gun Kiss. We'll be here forever if I keep talking about karaoke. Here's shogi. I cannot play shogi. I don't understand it. I've tried, but I'm very bad at chess. And I'm worse at shogi because I forget what all the pieces do. When I can't comprehend my opponent's strategy, what am I supposed to do? Oh, you thought shogi was bad. Oh boy, here I am trying to play mahjong. Real 4-player mahjong, not mahjong solitaire. And not just 4-player mahjong. Japanese 4-player mahjong. Riichi mahjong with its confusing rules. I've declared pawn. I don't remember what that is. Let's have a look. Right, you need 4 sets of 3 and a pair. Shunsu and Kotsu are types of Mensu, and you need a Janto, which is made of a Toitsu. The 3 types of melds are Pon, Chi, and Kan. Immediately after opponent discards a tile, you claim it and add it to your hand. If you add it to your hand and it completes its 3 numbers straight, that's a Chi. If it matches a pair, that's a Pon. If you have a triplet and they discard a 4th matching tile, you can select Kan to claim it and make an exposed Kan. If you have an exposed Pon, you can turn it into a Kan. A Pon can become a Kan, but when a Kan is announced, there's a new Dora. Oh, so many terms. A concealed hand is when Pon or Chi has not been declared. If the player has a concealed hand and declares Kan, the hand is still concealed. Okay. You can win via Ron or Tsumo, and if you steal the last tile from someone else, it's Ron. If you draw it yourself, it's Tsumo. If you win by Tsumo, you get more points. Then you can change the rules Although the game didn't mention what Kuitan, the 2-han minimum, or Red Dora mean, so I think I'll leave those alone. Well, I better learn the hands, so I know what I'm aiming for. Okay, if you have a concealed hand of all straights in a pair, it's still worth 1 han. Identical straights are... Hold on, why are there 23 pages of hands? Okay, triplets of dragons are good, triplets of the round wind or your seat wind. Right, that's where I'm sitting. Then there's a Haite Hote, a Rinshan Kaiho, a Chankan, Toi Toi Chanta, Ikitsukan, Chi Toitsu. Oh boy, that's a lot of things. Pure outside hand, half flush, double identical sequences, terminal and honor discards, a full flush. No one's going to score anything after this page. All these are ridiculously rare, surely. Okay, if I somehow pick up every dragon on the table, that's big 3 dragons. You get little 4 winds, 13 orphans. I don't need to know all this. Although I think I do. I need to know something. I clearly don't know enough to play Mahjong. But okay, let's go for a Chi. I've got a 2, 3, and 4 of bamboo, as well as the 7, 8, and 9 of bamboo. You know, if I played this for 7 more years, I might begin to understand it. Oh, he's got a pawn. Either way, this round ended when one of the players did a Tsumo, and I lost. But I didn't lose as much as old school Jiro. If you go under this bridge, there's a little place where you can play Koikoi and Oichokabu. Koikoi is like advanced Snap, but with Hanafuda cards, and you're not just trying to make pairs, but other things. Now, I have no idea what I'm doing, but you don't actually need to know what you're doing to win koi in a video game. You just... Well, you can choose to call koi, and then the exciting music starts, and, there's a lot of action going on here. I'd describe the action, but I don't know. I'm collecting flowers and ribbons and seasons. And if I do it just right, even though, as I said, I have no idea what I'm doing, I may just prevail. I've read the rules for Koikoi, but I don't remember them. All I know is that some things are junk and some things are not junk. I've completed seasons, so I win. There were 3 rounds in the match. I won the match, so I won some points that I'd wagered. Because you bet with tags. And I don't know, you're not going to make much money doing this, but it can be fun. It's probably more fun if you understand what you're doing. The other game here is Oichokabu, which is much simpler. Cards are drawn with values from 1 to 10. Your aim is to be the closest to 9. Or any number ending with 9. 19, 29. I've got an 8. No one else has an 8. I win. Next up, takoyaki. It's not a mini game, it's a food. And I want some. Don't just stand there, man. You're letting the takoyaki burn. Flip the takoyaki. Just 2 more mini games left. Yeah, there's no dice games, no CeeLo and no Chohan. But we do have Texas Hold'em. I'm not going to explain how Texas Hold'em works. It's a very simple game. That was a great high card win. Yeah, I prefer winning by high card to flush. It's funnier. Right, now here's blackjack. Unfortunately, the dealer has 21, and I bet 1,000 chips on that, so I lose. But, you know, you could just make a save before that, like I did, and reload your save, and casinos hate this one weird trick. Now I have 2,000 chips, and I can quit blackjack. And now you know all 22 or so mini-games in Yakuza Like a Dragon. Gee, that took a while. It could have been its own video. You can do all this, but you can't go fishing. This guy said he got yelled at for fishing here last time. So we're not even going to try. Maybe Ichiban isn't interested in fishing. I mean, he is best friends with a crustacean, after all. He's probably against fishing. Who knows? Let's move on. Chapter 7. To Osaka and Beyond. The grand finale. Sotenbori. The secondary setting of Yakuza 2, 0, and 5. Home of the big mechanical crab. A beautiful city on the river. Home to lots of takoyaki that no one is cooking properly. Vendors, please, tend to your takoyaki. What are you doing? Eventually I found a kukuru store that sells real takoyaki that you can keep in your inventory, so I stocked up. I highly suggest you do the same when you get to this part of the story, because you're going to need a lot of good healing items. When you get to certain Bore is when the game starts really accelerating towards its end, and I highly encourage you to finish the game because it has a fantastic ending. I don't want you to be dissuaded when you get to this part of the game and it suddenly is hard, and you're up against a brick wall of difficulty, level 50 bosses, when you're only in the low 40s or high 30s in levels. What you need to do when you get to certain Bore is grind. But not grind on the street. That would be too slow, it takes forever. You have to do a very short and very interesting grind at the Battle Tower, which is run by a robot and features many floors of really interesting battles. This is where you'll be trying out all your new and very powerful attacks and acquiring lots more. This whole job, the Devil Rocker class, that's a paid DLC unfortunately, but it is quite cheap. And it does include another job as well for Sayako and Eri, where they get to use a Naginata. Anyway, battle your way up the Battle Tower. Fight all these enemies. You'll level up on almost every floor for a while. And once you've conquered the top, you should be ready for the boss battles that are to follow. It's a really fun tower. I found I had some of the best battles in the game, experimenting with different jobs and elemental attacks and when to switch in and out party members. The Battle Tower is a lot of fun. You'll spend a few hours in it, but they're good hours of really fun combat. Alright, it's almost time to wrap up this review. It's just, hey, how dare you interrupt the story I was talking over? There are just a few concerns I have to bring up before we're done. Now, Sumire is a skilled smith, but do you think she actually turned a wooden flipper into a steel flipper? Do we trust that, or did she throw out the wooden flipper and give me a steel one? And why, oh why, is NY Hot Dog not an enterable hot dog? Enterable store. Again, I want a hot dog. Eri Kamataki appears in no scenes with the party after her introduction. She fought with me to the very end in my save, but because she's technically missable, does that mean she's non-canon in the story? In this corner, why is there a gold ingot here? Do you think someone might be looking for it? Is it a trap? Is this football mocking me? Who would drop 500 yen on the floor and not notice? On a carpet? It's not like dropping a few cents, that's like a $5 coin, man. Also, boss. That concludes my questions. The next topic, you can buy a Caesar salad. Caesar salad! Caesar salad! Caesar salad! Not only can you buy a Caesar salad, you can eat it. And there's a table talk for it.
シーザーサラダってうまいな。チーズの風味とスナックのカリカリがいい感じでマッチしてる。
このカリカリってうまいよな。
うん、カリカリがたくさん入ってるときは得した気分になる。あれ？このカリカリの名前なんだったかな。クル。
Is it A. Cru-Cru, B. Crouton, or C. Glucosamine?
クルトンじゃなかったか？
ああ、そうだ、クルトンだ。よく知ってたな。
もうな。このカリカリだけずっと食べられたら幸せだろうな。
いや、この配分だからちょうどいいんだよ。クルトンばっかりになったらありがたみなくなると思うよ。
そういうもんか。なんか哲学的で深いじゃねえか。
いや、浅いよ。
Long-time SnakeOfBacon fans know I really like Caesar salad. So, the fact that there's Caesar salad dialogue in Yakuza 7 amazes me. This is an outstanding scene. And they've got a really good point about the croutons. No, if life was all croutons, croutons wouldn't be so special. They really are just hardened bits of toast. But in the context of the salad, they elevate the whole experience to new highs. Of course, when I'm making a Caesar salad myself, I would sometimes substitute store-bought croutons for just sort of stale bread that has been toasted quite a lot and cut into small squares, throw it into a bowl. You get lettuce, croutons, Paul Newman's Caesar salad dressing, that's my favourite, a hot barbecue chicken, cook up some bacon, boil some eggs, throw in a little bit of cheddar cheese, a bit of parmesan if you like. Parmesan would be better for this than cheddar. As long as you got some cheese in there with lettuce and amazing salad. One of the least salady salads. Like it's chicken and bacon and eggs with, yeah, there's lettuce to make it qualify as a salad. It's really just a... Caesar salad is... Where were we again? Ah, yes. Yakuza 7, Black Ops. The DLC Matriarch class machine gun attack is quite useful for taking down invested vagabonds, and you need to prioritise them because they'll run away. And if they don't run away and you do beat them, you can get over 400,000 experience, which sort of makes any other grinding method pointless. Once you've cleared the battle tower and reached Kamurocho, the only thing worth fighting is invested vagabonds underground. It's a wild and nutty game, and whenever one of the characters does something completely impossible and ridiculous, you have to remember it's all a bit of Ichiban's Don Quixote-like imagination. But it's real enough for us. It doesn't matter if it's a metaphor or a hallucination, it's real in spirit. And because you know what Adachi is like, what his character stands for, when you see him do this impossible jump and shield slam, it does not inspire ridicule, it inspires the player to say, hell yeah, that was cool, because you believe in these people. In conclusion, I had many reservations initially about the Yakuza series of brawler-based games I know becoming a turn-based RPG, but I don't mind now. Yakuza 7 pays tribute to classic RPG mechanics and uses those mechanics as a tool to tell a new type of story for a new dragon, going on his own type of dragon quest. At times this hero's journey is dark and sorrowful, at other times violent and totally ridiculous. There are twists and turns and fun along the way, and so many new great characters have been added to this Whisky Opera, I wouldn't mind if any of them had their own spin-off games. Maybe it'd be nice to see from Nanba's point of view. Oh, Struth, that's not what I meant. On a serious note though, I love this game and all its many features. It's a stellar entry in what will go down in history as one of the greatest RPG series ever made, and at its core is a solemn message.
みんな何かしら抱えてるもんだよな。それを言える誰かがいりゃまだマシってもんだ。
The game is about life and how it's not possible without human connections. About persevering through adversity so you can climb that pyramid. Even if it seems impossible to get more than halfway, it's not. With a lot of hard work and love and bread rolls, a fish can become a dragon.
月とか言ってたな。そんな俺らがよ、高級店で焼きたてのフランスパンなんて食ってんだから、人生わかんねえもんだよな。
そうかもな。だがよ、あの時あんたからもらった焼き魚ホットドッグの味は一生忘れらんねえよ。ありがとうな。
そうか。またいつか焼き魚ホットドッグ食おうぜ。俺らが富豪になったとしてもよ。
So, if you play Yakuza 7 and you like it, you'll probably want to be playing Yakuza 7.5 to find out what exactly Kiryu's been up to all this time since he erased his name. That's right, there isn't a Kiryu anymore. What Kiryu? This is Joryu game. SnakeOfBacon, snining... Yes, Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name is a great game that I started playing last Christmas. I'll review it pretty soon, but Tekken 8 is the next one up. SnakeOfBacon signing out. Anyway, yeah, that'll do.
よろしくミチ